going to start. First of all, I have to say hello from Baredemaeker. He unfortunately is coming down with the flu right now and can't be here, so I'm taking over his part of the presentation as well. I'm Eric, and I'm going to tell you a few things about Mongolian and Balinese. Now, and their technical implementation as of right now. All right. So first, now today in the morning, Yo quickly walked me through his presentation, and I hope I can do it properly. Now, Mongolian script, as you may or may not know, is a vertical script, top down, and the letters connect. And you have just, like in many other languages as well, initial, medial, and final forms of letters. Hardly any isolated forms, but we'll come to that in a minute again. And the funny thing about Mongolian is that a lot of letters are reused time and time again. For instance, the letters for A and E, they look exactly the same. And a little bit like, if you know Arabic, you know, there's the sin and the sheen, and the difference are the three dots, right? Or some other marks you can put on the letters, so you'll see the difference. But in traditional Mongolian, at least, there's no such difference. They're exactly the same. And the traditional Mongolian script is used for a couple of languages, sometimes with modifications. For instance, Mongolian has about 5 million speakers. Manchu, the Manchu variation, has about 10 million speakers. And Buryat, Oirat, Aligali, Todo, and Siber are different dialects that are used throughout the Mongolian speaking area, which is partly in China and partly in Russia. And the dialects, this sounds like, okay, like the difference between, you might think that might be the difference between British English and American English. No, it's so totally different that people speaking the Todo dialect would not understand someone speaking a Buryat dialect, for instance. But the script, the traditional script, can be used for all of these. And this is what it looks like. You see, it's top down. And once you're finished with one column, you go from left to the right. And you see all the letters are connecting, and the basic structure is pretty easy. You have initial, medial, and final forms. In this case, it's the A sound. And only the vowels can have isolated forms as well. So these are the only exceptions. Other than that, there are only initial, medial, and final forms. Yes, and they take different shapes. And as I said, one of the main problems is that you can see this here. For instance, this is what students of the traditional Mongolian script get to practice. Here, for instance, the same. You see, with the yellow dots, Yo marked the letters that are reused, and it's exactly the same letters here. For instance, for the O and the U sound here, or for Z and Ch, and so on. And there's like really no difference. The only exception, you see, there's the Manchu variations, and the Manchu sometimes adds a dot or something. But that's about it. Traditional Mongolian scripts, it's exactly the same, as you can see here. See, the O and the U are exactly the same, and the A and the E. Yeah. Now, the technical problems we face today is the vertical layout implementation. There's a hack we use mostly today, which is that the letters are built horizontally into the font, and the whole font is turned 90 degrees. This is the way it's implemented in OpenOffice, and I believe in Microsoft Office as well, if I'm not mistaken. But in Mongolia itself, OpenOffice is the most widespread software in use. And this poses problems for making the fonts. So for the type designers, and I can see there are a lot of type designers here today, as you may or may not know, or the older people amongst you may remember this. There used to be a software called FontLab, and this is the way you would work in FontLab. You see, it's turned 90 degrees, and you would sort of abuse the X height for this vertical line that all the Mongolian characters are aligned to is called the spine, right? So we sort of turn the spine 90 degrees and reuse and make the X height use that. But of course, it's hard to test it because what do you do? How do you test this? You can turn your laptop around, but if you work like with an iMac, it's much harder, of course. Maybe you can use a second monitor or whatever and turn it around. It's hard to use, right? So this is what's happening. We are reusing the X height for the spine, and the left and right side bearing are now the top and bottom side bearings. But in order to build it properly, we'd have to turn it 90 degrees, right? So also the same thing in RoboFont. In RoboFont, there's Frederick wrote an interesting addition to it. Now, you cannot, of course, that would be an operating system function to turn everything 90 degrees. But what you can do, and let me show you this. Frederick wrote an extension to RoboFont that allows you to turn everything 90 degrees. So you can set the type you just drew, vertically. Yeah. So this would be an interesting implementation. Also, this is the space center of RoboFont, and with all the text set vertically. Just one tiny little bit, of course, it's top down and then left to right, but it's right to left. Okay, and it's good enough for judging vertical layout. The funny people of Glyph's app, they came up with a different solution. They thought that what would a traditional Mongolian font editor look like, and of course you'd work immediately vertically, so there's no such thing as like you have to turn something 90 degrees. You work vertical right from the start. There's the spine, right? And you see the letters connecting right next to each other. And instead of left side bearing width and right side bearing, you get top side bearing height and bottom side bearing. Now you can hardly see it here, of course, but you can just fill in sort of your Mongolian characters or Mongolian glyphs, and then export it. And yes, this is the state of Mongolian as of now, and on behalf of you, Baredemaeker, I say thank you for your attention to the Mongolian part. Now, if it's all right with you, are there any questions about Mongolian already, or should I move on to Balinese right away? Because this is the second part of my presentation. Yes?
Are there many different styles of Mongolian?
Are there many different styles of Mongolian, was the question. Yes, there are. You saw the difference between Manchu and the traditional Mongolian style, and there are some variations. Some characters have different variations. It's a little more complicated than just in this region you use that, in that region you use that. It's a little more complicated than that, but there are a few variations. Yes.
Different shapes of the various extensions or length or position of the dots?
Now, it's that's also different in terms of the different styles you get. You saw the Manchu had like extra dots that would allow to differentiate between A and E, for instance, and there are in some variations you would compose some ligatures differently, for instance, and what else? If I remember correctly, some characters have style variations, and there are different style variations in different contexts. and but they're different, especially in grammatical contexts. There's differences if a man writes it or if a woman writes it, then you'll make a different sign, for instance. Things like that. And yeah, this is
Vast subject.
okay. All right. Balinese. Now, it has nothing to do with Mongolian, but it poses similar technical problems. A couple of years ago, I think it was 2005, this man came to me, Thomas Moog. He's an Austrian painter and scholar who teaches Asian studies in Vienna, and he specializes in Indonesia and especially in Bali, on Balinese. And he came to me and said, I drew these glyphs, these shapes, and he came up with the sort of hack to type Balinese on a computer. But he would reuse, let's say, the Latin character positions for the Balinese characters. There was no Unicode back then for Balinese, and that was the best he could do at that time. And he came to me and said, can you do that? And I said, yeah, of course, no problem. So, mind you, that was like 8 years ago. Now, the Balinese script, that's what he explained to me, is, now, the easy thing is it's left to right. So that's a good start. But it's partially connecting. I'll get back to the partially connecting bit later. Now, the more difficult stuff is that you have marks, yeah, just like in Latin, okay, that's still easy, but the marks can connect to the left, to the right, to the top, or to the bottom, or any combinations of these, so you can have a top and right connecting mark, or a left and right connecting mark, and stuff like that. The top and bottom exist as well. And you have some marks are spacing and some marks are non-spacing, which is a bigger problem. I'll come to that in a minute. And and the characters don't only go from left to right, but sometimes they stack. So they can have up to 3 levels, right, that they stack upon. Now this is the Balinese alphabet. It starts with Hana, Cha, Raka, and so on. This actually means something. It's just it's not even 20 characters, so it should be super easy, right? But this is where the fun starts. Now this would be the letter Ga, right? And like any Brahmic script, you would any consonant is combined with the sound A, right? So this would be Gaga, right? I always dreamt about this being on stage somewhere and saying Gaga to a lot of people. It gets better. Now, if they're stacked on top of each other, the first one loses its vowel, so this would be G-ga, right? This would be Gi, this would be Gu. Saying Gu to a lot of people. Okay, this would be a vowel elongation, this would be a long Ga, and this would be a Ge. And you see here, for instance, a left and right combining mark. This would be the O. So go, that means, and I believe this means gay. So I can say gay and goo and go. All right, and you see how this is where the fun starts. Of course, we can. This is all built into OpenType. We can have marks and anchors and anything and all these nice things. But are they supported? That's the big question. What does it look like once you try to write it? Oh, trying to write it, that's the next problem. So these are the problems we face. Now, one thing is there's no keyboard layout yet. There's already, Balinese has its section in the Unicode, standard already. So that's done, but at least to my knowledge, there's no working Unicode-compatible keyboard layout yet. There are no working template fonts yet. There are some fonts that try to be as complete as possible with Unicode, but of course get everything wrong. But at least they have the character. And one problem that we face is Volt versus AFDKO. Now the type designers know this for complex scripts. you used to have to work with Microsoft Vault. But you design your font on a Mac, on a Mac font editor, but then you'd have to finish the OpenType tables in Microsoft Vault. Now, you'd have to use a second application. Now, until recently, that was the only option you had for more complex scripts. Except now that AFDKO went into 2.5 points something, that we have some possibilities to solve all these problems we have, all these connecting problems, with AFDKO, which is the Adobe engine for producing OpenType tables, and which is a good thing because all the Mac font editors, or most of them, are based on the AFDKO. So we can produce a Balinese font right out of a font editor and don't need a second application. Yeah, and about the implementation for the user, I came across a couple of problems. For instance, the way the GPOS table is interpreted differently between Microsoft Word and Adobe InDesign. These are the two applications I'm trying to test it in, and I try to get it working in both, like as equally as possible. And I don't know, at least in my experience, Microsoft Word turns spacing marks into non-spacing marks, or it doesn't give them the space as Adobe InDesign does. You know, if you type a spacing mark connected to somewhere else, then in InDesign, then the letter will advance. The advance width is taken care of, and in Word it's just treated like a non-spacing mark. Yeah. And also contextual kerning, which is then my workaround to do this, because when you, for instance, write the O like this, which has a right and a left connecting mark, then of course the whole thing needs to advance, otherwise this left mark would crash into the letter before, and this should not happen, of course. And so we need to resort to a lot of contextual kerning. This is not always treated the same way in InDesign and Word. Now, and these are the problems you come across. All these 4 pictures are wrong. There's something wrong happening. For instance, the top left, the wrong U vowel. There should be a smaller one here. Here it's connecting to the wrong point. Here the O does not decompose. Here it does decompose, but it does not connect properly. These are the problems we face. But so far, I managed to be able to type this, and this is, I think, pretty much a first. This has not worked anywhere else before in a Unicode and OpenType solution. Right? As of now, I think I've got the implementation finished 75 to 80%. But again, I'm facing a few other problems which might indicate that I'm still at 10% solution. But you see, this is a screen movie, as you can tell, from directly out of InDesign, and you see the marks do connect, and these are the keystrokes I type. Oh yes, the keystrokes I type. I did make my own keyboard layout based on the US keyboard, because on Bali there are a lot of American keyboards in use. And this works perfectly already, produces the right Unicodes, so it's great. What I plan to do is, once we got the implementation finished, we want to turn this font, we name it after after the Thomas Moog, Moog Bali. It's going to be free, and we'll also open source it, so you can download it and see how it's structured and everything. And also, I'll try to document it and put it on GitHub. And the great thing is, if everything works out nicely, then we'll be able to deliver an AFDKO-based solution, so we can build it straight into the font editor. So you just make all the glyphs you need, and put your connecting marks, your connecting anchors onto it, and then you export it. And I'm happy to announce it's going to be built into Glyphs 2.0. And this is what it looks like. so this is how you edit. You have a lot of you see the connecting anchors and glyphs indicates with a light gray sort of ghost what it would look like or where the marks are going to be positioned. So and we hope to be I hope to be finished with the implementation, all set, everything perfect before the end of the year. So thank you. Any questions about Balinese or Mongolian? Yes, Toshi.
I forgot to ask you during the Mongolian. Does glyphs generate automatic Mongolian features well? Because it's the hardest part.
That's true. That's the hard part. It doesn't do that yet.
Okay.
The problem is, we can produce the vertical all the vertical features, but the next problem will be the support for the vertical features, and we're testing a lot and we're working out a lot, and it doesn't quite work the way we'd expect it to work. And so we have a lot of we can solve it on the font part, and everything, according to specification would be right in the font part, but nobody could use the font. That's the well. So I have a few people to talk to later. Hello, Microsoft. Anyone from OpenOffice here? Okay. So.
Similar question.
Yeah.
Just a similar question that I asked before. This seems to be like a kind of calligraphic style.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain something about
The Balinese?
Balinese?
Yeah.
How you get to choose this style? How widely this is used today? Just a little bit of more background would be much appreciated.
That's maybe something I should have added with the Mongolian thing as well. There are working Mongolian solutions right now, and which sort of caused or made possible a renaissance of the traditional Mongolian script. You used to only be able to write it by hand, and now you can use it even on websites. It already works. And right now on Bali, as far as I know, or as far as I've been told, the traditional Balinese script is only mainly used in traditional context. So when it's connected to some religious thing, for instance. But in everyday use, people type Bahasa Indonesia, which is written with Latin letters, as you know. And so it's and digitally in use, it's only Latin on Bali, because you cannot really, it's not really implemented anywhere yet. But I don't know, maybe next year this will change.
So how much variations is there in this traditional writing?
Now the origin of this is you would sort of cut this into palm leaves, and so the thicks and the thins are sort of slightly arbitrary, you might say. But I have seen a few designs, and where the thicks and the thins are placed varies a lot. It's. I don't know if there are many people writing this with a pen or with a brush, but the origin is just cutting sort of monolines into palm leaves. So I'm the wrong person to ask about calligraphic origins.
It's like cutting in palm leaves and then rubbing ink in it.
For instance, yeah, or some other color. Yeah.
And I presume it's used on lettering of buildings or things like that.
Yeah. And yeah. All right. Good. That's it. Good. I think we're pretty much out of time anyway. So okay. Thank you.